The president leaving the briefing room, President Trump wrapping up another press conference about this virus, taking a few questions on other matters. As you saw, there were no medical experts as a part of this briefing. Now, as we come on the air, you should know the coronavirus task force has been, in substantive ways, openly clashing with the president. 52 million Americans also waiting on basically the Republican Senate to continue negotiations to try to re-up this relief bill, benefits having expired. Now, the president also made news on the virus here by clashing with a top advisor you may recognize from back when they did include doctors in these briefings, Dr. Birx. He called his own employee here, quote, pathetic because of some of what she said about admitting the fact that this virus outbreak, as you may know, is very widespread in the United States and is entering a new phase.
We are in a new phase. What we're seeing today is different from March and April. It is extraordinarily widespread. It's into the rural as equal urban areas. And that's why we keep saying no matter where you live in America, you need to wear a mask and socially distance.
Nothing particularly notable about that quote. As you heard, it's a doctor referring to these millions of cases, topping 4 million, and saying this is extraordinarily widespread, whether you are in urban or rural America, suburb or exurb. The president, though, didn't like this, and he alleges that Dr. Birx was caving to some sort of pressure from Democrats, Speaker Pelosi, and all of this comes as Republican strategists are out there warning that time may be politically running out for Donald Trump in this election. Ballots, of course, go out soon. We just heard moments ago the president sharing his concern about early and mail-in voting. One strategist saying all of this is, quote, bad news for Donald Trump. The facts here, as we bring them to you every night, 4.7 million U.S. virus cases. The CDC says that's a floor. Many other millions of cases unconfirmed. Donald Trump and Republicans, meanwhile, have not been able to get a breakthrough on this relief bill that so many Americans are waiting on. 30 million people have now seen those unemployment benefits from the federal support expire. And all this comes amidst a time when, yes, everyone's keeping track. We are now 92 days out from the election. I'm joined now by Dr. Kavita Patel, a former Obama health policy advisor and medical contributor for us, Jason Johnson, a professor from Morgan State University, and Margaret Carlson, columnist for the Daily Beast and a longtime chronicler of Washington. Doctor, I'm curious what you think about the clash that, frankly, did not get a ton of time in this briefing. The president, to be clear, did speak about the virus and other issues in his presentation, but many of the questions went in a different direction. I would forgive viewers for thinking that what Dr. Birx said sounded relatively standard.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Ari. She was really just honestly stating the facts. This is an extraordinarily widespread virus. Over 65,000 new cases a day, toppling millions, as you cited. And I think she's, in her own way, trying to kind of navigate that political thread of trying not to displease the president, but also trying to be one of the few people that's actually still allowed from the task force to be prominently displayed on weekend television and news shows. So I don't see anything wrong with what she's saying, but unfortunately the reaction has been yet again another kind of dismantling of, I think, the credibility of health and science, and it just speaks to, again, a president who has refused to acknowledge kind of the, country aflame around him, and yet we're still looking for that national leadership, desperately so, more than ever.
And Jason, Speaker Pelosi has been out addressing this. I want to play for you a little bit from the speaker.
I don't have confidence in anyone who stands there while the president says, swallow Lysol and it's going to cure your virus.
So you're saying she hasn't challenged his disinformation?
Well, she stood there and no, I think that she has enabled.
Jason?
Yeah, that's part of the problem. Even as the president tries to brag or claim if there will be some sort of vaccine by the fall, he's talked about, hydroxychloroquine. He's talked about disinfectant, purple drain, blueberry Faygo, whatever it is he comes up with every single week. He seems to have a new excuse or a new way that we can supposedly solve this disease. And he's got too many people who are basically enabling this kind of bad behavior. And Nancy Pelosi is correct. Dr. Birx has not called him out for this. And the individuals who do, either directly or indirectly, like Dr. Fauci, they get sidelined.
Yeah. And Margaret, I want to get your views on the breakdown of negotiations in Washington. There are many ways to measure this COVID recession, and viewers and people around the country are living it. So you don't need me to give you 10 different versions of it. People know it. But when you look at the total number of people in the age workforce who are underemployed or unemployed, it's 47%. It's just a huge body blow to our entire society, and yet they can't get their act together, Margaret, even to get some of this basic relief temporarily extended.
So, Ari, if I may say, I'm happy to see Jason again after a while, even if it's in a box. On what Republicans are doing, it's not even in their self-interest not to help out these people who are suffering. They're going to be homeless soon. They're unemployed now. It's going to be, I mean, the economy is cratering. But Trump has it backwards. He still thinks you can save the economy and not fix the coronavirus. And the order of battle is completely wrong. And anyone, even one of these poor children he's going to send back to school without it being safe, could tell him, you have to make the public health work first. And all during this press briefing, it's amazing to me that he keeps saying, oh, it's still going to go away. Oh, we had this problem and we have this problem here, but it's going to go away without ever doing the next sentence, which is what he's doing to make it go away. There's still no plan. And I imagine we're going to be seeing less of Dr. Birx than we have before because she stopped playing the game. And he said she was pathetic and sad. And I think that's truly what he thinks of her. Even though he said she was just in my office, I think she was just in his woodshed.
Doctor?
No, that's absolutely right. And I think what's really sad is that she was one of the last people that had the medical training, the professional kind of health background, decades of service. And, you know, from the beginning has been someone who is both enabled, but had been one of the few people that was remaining. And I agree that she is probably going to be sidelined. And unfortunately, by doing so, America is sidelined. And this connection between the economy, health, reopening schools, it's all, as we've mentioned, intrinsically connected. And somehow we're still sitting here August and people are not, for whatever reason, it's not penetrating through the Oval Office. So we have to find a way forward without this leadership.
Jason, I'm curious what you... go ahead, Margaret, and then I'll ask Jason. Go ahead.
Birx is a thunderclap that should be heard because she has played along, not just enabled, but at times she's lavished Trump with praise about his attention to detail and scientific journals. I mean, really, that is laying it on pretty thick. So that should jolt him because there's no one left. Even Admiral Giroir is dumping on hydroxychloroquine and said masks are absolutely necessary. He couldn't go the last mile and say they should be mandated when he was asked, but, you know, maybe he'll get there.
Jason, what I did want to ask you is, it is true that the resumption of these briefings gives the White House press corps a chance to push the president. And now we're seeing people in that room, including some of our own colleagues at NBC and people at other outlets, going to other topics. I'm curious what you think, because on the one hand, pre-COVID, there was plenty of free press criticism of the president and the White House press secretary for dispensing largely with any press access. On the flip side, we're all familiar with the criticism of how much time should the president get. What do you think it tells us here as we go into the general election campaign that those reporters, including our colleagues, are going in there and saying, hey, all right, we heard your point on the virus, we're hitting you with questions about all these other topics?
I don't think the president's going to continue these press conferences for long, or he'll continue to ask sort of right-wing plants that are in the audience that are going to toss him softball questions about the dangers of mail-in voting. Look, this is not a president who can easily answer questions and not a president who really deals with much criticism one way or another. And I do want to say this because it's not just from the president's tweets. We're going to see him get increasingly aggressive about anybody who stands against him, whether it's the general, Dr. Birx. If we remember back to impeachment hearings, they're probably talking right now. She's going to go go through some things, as they said for our Ukrainian ambassador. I expect that the president is going to use these press conferences to attack his enemies, not deal with the questions he's being asked, and eventually they're going to shut them down, because the more he talks, the worse he does in the polls. And that's really the lesson that they probably should have figured out from earlier this spring.
And there have been a lot of jitters over those polls. It is very early. And polls can change, but there's certainly a perception there that they need to do something about what is trailing in Biden in many key states. Dr. Patel, Jason Johnson, Margaret Carlson, thanks to each of you for kicking off our special coverage coming out of the briefing. We have a lot more planned in tonight's show.